So I'm back on the boat. I'd wanted to get started as soon as I got here, but as soon as I got here, I got sick. So I kind of didn't do anything for a bit. Also, it's very suddenly summer. I actually had to take a nap today because it got so hot during the day. I was running the heater like 2 days ago. Does any of that matter to what we're doing today? No, not at all. So the first thing I need to do is de-winterize the boat, specifically the water. Last year when I cleaned out the tanks for the first time, I shocked the tanks. And then after that, I was only using the water in the tanks for doing dishes, taking showers, that kind of thing. I always had portable water. That's not going to be possible once I leave. I'm not going to be able to carry enough water. So to try to give myself a better chance at being able to actually safely drink the water out of the tanks, I'm going to shock them a second time. Currently, all of the tanks are mostly empty with antifreeze in them. So I'm going to put some water in and flush those out. And then I'm going to put just regular bleach. I think it's 0.1% concentration. I think it's for every 1 liter you put 1 milliliter or something like that. When I get to it, I'll tell you exactly what it is. I've got a guide I'm following. What am I doing after that? Once that's done, I need to make space for the new batteries. I had originally planned to pull the batteries apart so that I could bring the boxes in empty, position them, and put the cells in and reassemble the batteries. I wasn't paying attention, and if you recall, I had to put a lot of downward force on the batteries to get them physically into the box. Oh, this is tight. It's in. They're not coming out of the box non-destructively. So the yard mechanic Joe, who's been an absolute godsend, has offered to help me get them onto the boat. About 100 pounds each, what is that, 40, 50 kilos each, and then get them into position. I'm really nervous about this because once I start that process, I've got no 12 volt until I'm done. So all in relatively rapid succession, I am going to be removing the old 12 volt batteries, dropping in the new 12 volt batteries, and then as soon as I can, after the batteries are in place, I want to take out the Hart interface inverter and drop in the Victron Multiplus Compact, hopefully in the exact same space. I'm hoping I can fit both of them into that space. Yeah, we're gonna see. Once I can get the 12 volt running and charged, I'm going to tie it into the main 12 volt system of the boat. I need to get the fridge back up and running, I need to get the lights back up and running, and I need the bilge pump up and running. Once I hit that point, all the stress comes off, and I can stop and then start planning for the proper rewire, go through, take out the old solar charger, etc., etc. So that's the plan for this video. Let's get started with the water. So the first thing I need to do, pardon the harsh lighting, it's almost sunset. I bypassed the hot water tank, so I didn't fill the hot water tank with... Oh, wait, because I didn't fill the hot water tank with antifreeze, because I just drained it and left it opened, I can drain all the antifreeze first, then connect it and fill it up. Next thing I need to do is go up and actually open up the deck fills and start filling the tank. The tanks, there's 3 of them. What did I do with the deck fill key? Boat is an absolute mess, and I don't have enough time. I need to sort everything out. What the hell did I do with my deck fill key? God damn it. So after tearing the boat apart stem to stern, literally, well, almost literally, guess where I found it? Would never have thought to look in the drawer. Alright, I also found something else I've been looking for. I couldn't find my needle nose pliers or my dead weight, and I thought I had left them at Acorn de Arabella. I found them. Do you want to see where? Yeah, they're gonna need some TLC. I was not entirely clear-headed when I left the boat last time. Put some PB Blaster on this and let it soak. While I'm doing that, I'll tell you a story. Shortly after I left the boat, I was maybe 4 hours down the road. I had left my boat unlocked because I had literally emptied it. There was nothing on the boat. I called up Joe because I'm like, you know what? I'm sure I didn't do this, but can you go on my boat when you get a chance and check the hose going on to the raw water inlet Seacock? So I'm pretty sure I tightened it up. Sends me a text back about a couple hours later. They weren't even on. I'd stuck the hose on. Thankfully the Seacock was closed, but the ring terminals were still ring terminals. The hose clamps were still halfway up the hose, so he fixed that for me. I was really clearly out of it when I left. All right, what did I do with the PB blaster? There it is. I don't know if this is the right way to de-rust the tools, but I'm assuming it can't hurt. Oops. I mean, I feel stupid, but I'm also happy because I had given up and I was ready to buy them. The only reason I hadn't bought replacements yet is I just haven't been to Home Depot. Let that marinate for a little bit. So let's go add some water now. Did I still have the key? What did I do with the key? Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, there it is. Another issue I have is my waste hose. I need to take that out so I know what size hose to get for the vent. One thing at a time. Let's stay focused. Oh, it would help if I turned on the water. My brain is so good at being a brain. Now, my goal isn't to fill it up. It's just to get a bunch in so I can flush out as much of the antifreeze as I can. Should be enough. I don't think the antifreeze will do anything bad when it comes to shocking it, but I don't need to tighten that down, but why take a chance? This is going to be going into the night. Oh well. Okay, enough for what I need right now. Let's go back inside. How's this doing? Y'all, I think the patient's gonna live. Some battle scars, but she'll live. I suppose I should get used to my tools being rusted. From everything I understand, there's pretty much no way to avoid it when you live on a boat. Not to say I'll be careless, but I'm not gonna cry. Actually, this emery cloth thingy is turning out to be more and more useful than I would ever have imagined. Hand tool rescue this is not, but she's right as rain. She'll be fine. Well, that makes me happy-ish. Wish I hadn't found it there, but I'm just glad I found it at all. Back to the task at hand. I know that once the V-berth tank drains, the pump doesn't work anymore. It sucks air. Even when I close it, there must be an air leak somewhere. So I'm going to do the port and starboard side tanks first. Oh, I have dishes just waiting for me to get this done. All right, so you can see that that's pink. That's the antifreeze that's in it. So let's do port first. Oh, they were all open. Lovely. Actually, I might as well do starboard first, seeing as it's still closed. Or it's the only one that's open now. Oh, there's air in the line. Neat. The pink acts sort of like a level. Let's try foot pumping it. I do this until it goes clear, and then all the lines relative to the starboard tank should be free of antifreeze. Then I'll do the port, and then I'll do the V-berth, and then I will turn on the pressure water system. See, it's mostly clear. That's probably just what's dilute from the water I just added. You know, that's good enough for now. Do port now, and this should go pretty dark pink again in a second. It's more pink again. I don't know how clear it's going to get because, again, the water I added is mixed in now with the antifreeze. Seems good enough. Let's do V-berth, forward as they call it. There it gets nice and dark again. Now I added very little water, so I don't expect that to take long to drain. Okay, now with those done, let's get this cleared out because this is blocking access to the pressure water system. And it's convenient that I'm doing this because I need to almost certainly lift this whole panel off to get the new battery in. All right. Oh, that's where that missing socket went. I'm finding all my missing tools today. This is lovely. I think my accumulator shot as well. Anyways, we need to drain this out now. Turn on freshwater pump. All right, it sounds like it's getting pressure. Yep, got pressure. All right, you watch this. I'm gonna go and start running the faucet. Actually, I've got 2 cameras. How pretend professional that I can have 2 different shots. Ignore all my dirty dishes. Okay, before I suck the system dry, I want to pull some water out of the galley as well. Or out of the galley, out of the head. Can you even see this? It is very clamped. Welcome to my head. This thing needs to get replaced as well. I didn't open the through hole yet for that. Yuck. I need my light. I don't want to, disheveled. I don't want to open any of the Seacocks. I don't absolutely have to. After having one of them leak, I don't know if I mentioned that in the channel. The one of the through holes, the one for the scuppers, wouldn't stop leaking even when it was closed. So I'm planning to replace all of the through holes, sorry, Seacocks, the ones I don't close over. Knowing now that they're aging, I don't want to turn a through hole unless I absolutely need to. I'm going to take a moment to make sure I'm turning the right one. I don't expect you to see this, I'm sorry. That's the drain. It goes to that one. Okay, that I had my hand on the right one. I was being paranoid. There we go. And it drained. Okay. Ugh. After I get the boat home, I am going to be taking off all the sole, everything I can, and giving the underside the deepest clean I can possibly give it. I'm looking forward to a day when I can stick my head down into the bilge and not feel yuck. I've got it on hot, but it really doesn't matter because it's shorted. It's bypassed the hot water tank. It's just cleaning out those circuits. Lines? What do you call it in plumbing? Is it a circuit? All right, so now I'm gonna run this until it runs out of water. Actually, knowing that the pump stops working once the V-berth is drained, I'm gonna close the V-berth. And that way I'll drain the port and starboard settees first. Actually, I won't know which is which. I'm gonna close port. So now it's just drying out of starboard. That's starboard empty. Let it build up pressure again. I should take the strainer off, or aerator, whatever you call this thing. Oh yeah, that's a lot faster. Is there still? No, it's not building back up. Nope. Open up the V-berth now. Okay, turn off the pump. I still have water in this. Actually, you know what? I'll empty this last. So, I'm not sure why it's not charging anymore. It must be sucking air from somewhere. Oh, of course it's sucking air from somewhere. I still left the port tank empty, or open. Oh, now I have to turn the... Oh, come on, brain. Yeah, I think it's charging this time. Or not. Open them all up and foot pump the last of it. Okay, so what I am going to do now is unscrew this and dump it out. Oh, I had a filter that looks like it might fit in this. Do I trust it after all these years? I think that filter goes in here. Okay, well, I'll play with that after. Let's go up top. Okay, don't drop that overboard. I'm sure that's not cheap to replace. All right. All right, port tank, let's go do starboard and V-berth. This is just a second rinse, and then I'm gonna start the shocking process. I'll leave that there. Don't forget it there for 2 months this time. All right, actually I might as well just leave that, no, because this one's not, it doesn't have a chain, so I'm gonna put that back so I don't lose it. All right, let's go do the V-berth. I don't know if there's anything to this, but when I left the tanks almost completely empty, and the tanks are vented, so I'm hoping they actually dried. So if there was anything still alive on the sides of the tanks, and I know this is not the proper way to do it, I'm hoping they dried up and died. And whatever might be there hibernating, ready to come back alive, will hopefully try to wake up into a concentrated bleach. No, that's not true. Wake up into a bleach solution, and then promptly not wake up. I don't want to run the pump any drier than I absolutely need to. So I'm going to do something probably slightly ill-advised. Try to fill this up with its relatively high pressure in the boat beside the inverter. All right, not perfect, but it's a bunch of it. You can watch this refill. Let's open these tanks back up. Open, open. They're all open. Turn off the V-berth. Turn off the port. So it's only starboard. How clean does it come now? Because I sucked it until the air was coming out of it, there shouldn't have been much antifreeze in the tank itself. And what I poured in wouldn't have had much time to mix with what was in the lines. Should have just flushed it out, and now it's pumping quite cleanly. And I close starboard and open port. Okay, it looks fine. Close port, open V-berth. No, it's pink again. Now it's pretty clear. Let's open up all 3 tanks and let's go turn on the pump. Okay. That definitely still had some antifreeze in it. Now I am going to hook up the hot water tank before I shock the system, because I want to make sure if I left any water inside the hot water tank, it didn't have a chance to start growing anything. So that's done. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but we have to get to the water tank, which is in here. I am really running out of places to put things. You are going out today. Oh, you know, I have to move you so I have somewhere to put the engine cover drawers. This was a lot light. Oh, you can't see anything right now. This was a lot lighter before I started using the drawers to store stuff. Now, if I remember, the main problem here is this is connected to this. So even though I can lift this up and move it, oh, shillings. Why do I have a water drip there? What's leaking? Don't tell me my hot water tank has failed. Oh, I hope that's something else leaking. Okay, I'm gonna have to see if I can lift this up and move it over this way. The trick is I can't bump this, or I can't rip that off. Okay. Oh, this whole thing is wet. Oh, it might be the joint. Ah, okay, that's gonna be nothing. That's not a big deal. Okay, never mind. Okay. You don't know what I'm talking about, so let me show you. All right, I don't know how much space I'm gonna get to work in here, but that coupler I installed at the end of last season before I winterized. So I have to go in and out. I have to remember which one's which though. Oh yeah, this one won't reach up here anyways. Oh yes it will. Oh, this one goes to here if I remember right, and this one goes to here. The fresh water pump is off. I actually have to go drain the system now because otherwise this is just going to gush water everywhere. I mean, it's still going to spill water, but at least now it should only spill what the bilge can handle. Well, hopefully the bilge can handle a lot more than what's just in my water system. I need to go get my wrenches. I don't regret getting a 38-foot boat instead of a 43-foot boat for a lot of reasons. But having more space would have been really nice, I won't lie.
Security, Stoja, northbound off Bloody Point Light, going to be slowing down at Anchor in Annapolis in the next 20 minutes. Vessel standby, channel 16 for all concerned traffic. Stoja.
Okay. I've been listening to the radio during the day to get a bit of a feel for, well, how it actually works. I I studied and got my VHS license, but it's one thing to know the theory, it's another thing to see how people actually use it. Alright, the question is, I still don't know for sure which one's which, but I think one of these will not reach the other, and that'll tell me which one is which. Alright. I was expecting a lot more water to fall out than that. Where is my silicone tape? There it is. And as my brother, who's a plumber, pointed out, this doesn't seal leaks. This is a lubricant, so you can get it off again later. You need to have, it's in a tube, it's like a goo that you put on that's a stop leak. I need to get the old shite off. If I really cared, I should call my brother, but he's probably working. So, that one only reaches here, so this has to be this and this. Okay, which direction is tightening it on? Okay, so turning this clockwise tightens it, so I have to wind it around like that, so that winding it on doesn't take the tape right back off. Okay, you know what? I think I want to take this fuel filter off. Yeah, I want to take this fuel filter off. So I was listening to the radio a few days ago. So this guy was calling in the Coast Guard because there was a vessel not under control, lost power, and had struck the Kent Narrows Bridge at least 3 times. There was 3 souls on board, no engine and no radio. They were on the south side of the bridge, which I checked the tide table, and the tide was coming in from that angle. That tide can be really strong. I tried docking this boat at the fuel dock with the tide behind me and gave up after my 3rd failed attempt. It is not to be trifled with. That is the kind of fear that made me want to do all of the work I did on the engine and the fuel system, because Murphy is going to cause you to have an engine loss. All right, how gently can I put this down? What can I do with this? How's that? Hanging off that little wire. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, move this out of the way. That is basically my single biggest fear, is losing my engine when I'm in New York Harbor and there's boats around, or there's hard rocks around, or. I mean, part of me was like, what were they doing out there without their radio? Well, I don't know what their story is. It's not my place to judge them. The point is, it was the horror story that I was most afraid of. The Coast Guard asked the person reporting it to switch to cell phone, so I don't know what the outcome of that was. I hope they were okay. Object lesson in why it's really important to do everything you can to make your vessel as safe as possible. My arm is just blocking you, isn't it? I don't know how tight I'm supposed to get this. I can't move it with my hand now, and I don't want to rupture anything, so I think I'm going to stop there and just see if it leaks. Alright, let's wrap this now. So this one's going to be the same. It's going to turn clockwise, which means I want to wrap the tape this way. If I wrap the tape this way and then try to screw it on this way, it's just going to unwind the silicone tape. Ask me how I know. It's hard enough to do normally. Trying to do with a camera in the way is even more fun. You can complain, just making a comment. Never complain about a situation you got yourself into. Besides, I've met so many lovely folks through this channel, I would never complain. Alright. Give it an extra unga dunga. Really don't know how hard I should be tightening that. I'm worried I over-tightened this one. Okay. How about you find out with me how much that takes. Is water going into this? You know what? I don't know if I put enough water in to fill this tank. Let's go and put some more in the V-berth. Ain't that pretty? And because there's birds around, I'm gonna throw a few threads on that, just to be safe. Oh, look at that. Let's put this into hot. Okay, I don't want to burn out the pump, so I'm going to let it rest for a little bit. I don't want to put too much water in the V-burr. Oh! I was starting to say I don't want to put too much water in the V-berth to make sure that the V-berth water is higher than the top of the tank, because I want to make sure I get as much bleach concentrate in there as I can, or the bleach mixture in there as I can. But it looks like I don't need to. Come on, sounds like you're almost full. Turn off pump. Come on, you can do it. What's happening down there? Why are you taking so long to turn off? I just realized something. Oh, there we go. See that right there? That's the refrigerant lines. They're connected to this board, which I need to take off in order to swap out the inverter and the batteries. Damn it. Oh well, more work. It's getting dark in here. I'm going to turn off the camera and swap the batteries, take a minute to have a breather, and look up to make sure I'm going to follow the instructions, and then I'll be right back. But for you, all right, I've had a bit of a rest, got the batteries swapped out, and I got a chance to reread what I'm supposed to do. At 1 milliliter per liter of tankage, you need to let the bleach water solution sit for 4 hours. It's already like 6 or 7 p.m. They said if you double it, then you only need to leave it for an hour. So I don't think I'm going to double it. So for me, I originally thought when I got this boat I had 120 gallons total capacity, but I could never figure out an accurate number of how much storage was in each of the tanks. On the Landfall 38 Facebook group, somebody mentioned that it is, had to go look, 32 gallons port and starboard and 39 gallons forward, which translates to 121 liters port and starboard and 141 liters forward. I believe it was 148 forward. That means that I need 390 milliliters of bleach if I wanted to do a 1 milliliter to a liter ratio, but I'm going to double it, so I want make it 400, so 800 milliliters. Where's the bleach thing I got? The thing of bleach that I got is 1.27 liters, so it's about, we're going to round this, it doesn't have to be a super exact science. I'm going to use 2/3 of this bottle mixed into the old water jug. I got a new water jug, so I'm going to use the old one to mix 2/3 of this bottle into that with water, and then I'm going to pour it roughly a light 1/3, a light 1/3, and the balance into the V-berth tank, and then I will fill up the rest of the tanks with water, and then I'm going to start a 1-hour timer. And I'm going to link below the guide that I'm following. The reason I'm pre-mixing some of this in here first is just so that I'm not pouring pure bleach down into the tanks. This is more of a concern if you've got an aluminum tank. I don't, mine are plastic. But it seems like a good idea to pre-dilute some of it. You know what, I need to go get my gloves because I don't want to get this stuff on my skin. Alright. Having this light behind me is probably not the best. Does that work better? I think that works better. Alright. Well, that was the pull tab. It didn't pull. Put that there. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put some water in this right away. Turn on the water. That feels about right. All right. I rinsed that off right away because it was relatively concentrated and I'm barefoot. I don't think that was quite 1/3. And I'm now going to fill this right to the top. I'm hoping it's actually going to come out the vent. That means I've got the bleach solution into the vent lines. Oh, I think we're almost full. There it goes. Water's coming out the vent. I'll show you what I mean. I don't know if you can see that because I can't see you, but that's the vent right there, and I wanted to see water gushing out. So if anything had been starting to grow in there, it shouldn't be anymore. All right. Well, probably not exact, but I'm also probably going to end up being 2 hours. The bugs are out. Ah! Getting eaten alive here. Man, summer came all of a sudden. So now that it's full, same thing, watching for the vent. There it goes. All right, let's go do the last one. I have to close these up here so I don't get mosquitoes in them. There. Woo! Got that one coming out the vent lines as well. So now we can go back inside. Damn skeeters. Let's go back inside and now start to run this bleach water solution through the various lines in the boat. So this last stage, there's no smell-o-vision, so you're not going to be able to see how it works. But what they're saying to do is to run all of the faucets, which in my case is just the head and the galley, hot and cold circuits, until you can smell the distinct smell of chlorine. So cold first. So to make sure that I've got water, or I've got the solution through all of the hoses, first I'm going to do cold only on starboard tank. Actually, this is a great opportunity to do pre-wash some of my dishes. I'm not smelling anything yet. Oh, there it is. Turning off the starboard, turning on port. Exciting YouTube, watching water drain. Oh, throw the aerator in. There's the smell again. Port tank off, V-berth tank on. Oh, there's the smell again. There we go. Now you can hear me. It said not to run the bleach and water solution through the hot water tank. I'm assuming that's because they're worried about it attacking the sacrificial anode that's in the tank. So I'm not going to run the hot water just yet. Oh, but... Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to let it sit for an hour or so. And then when I go to drain it, I will drain... how will I do this? As I drain it, I'll drain it through the hot water tank, so that'll get all of those lines flushed. It won't sit for as long, but it's a fairly concentrated solution and it's better than nothing. And then I'm going to be filling the 3 tanks back up and flushing them out right away. So if the bleach, the chlorine that does get into the tank that will attack the anode in there. I mean, assuming there's even an anode in there anymore. I haven't serviced it since I bought it, and I'm sure the previous owner didn't. Anyways, mental note, I have to check and replace that anode when I get home. If there is an anode in there, it won't be in contact with the bleach solution for too long, and it'll get rinsed out fairly quickly. Back in about an hour and change. Okay, it's been an hour. I'm going to drain the port and starboard settee tanks first. Yeah, I'm going to drain the port tank, settee tank, and then the V-berth tank, get everything sucking air, and then I'm going to refill them completely with water. I don't think you really want to sit here and watch water drain, so I'm going to turn off the camera. So after I turned off the camera yesterday, I drained off the chlorinated water, refilled the tanks, ran the water for a bit, tried to flush things out as much as I could. I can still smell a bit of chlorine in it. The guide was saying that if that was a problem, you could put a bit of hydrogen peroxide, which will neutralize, I don't know, I'm not a chemist, the bleach that's in the water, but I'm not too worried about it because I don't plan to drink out of these tanks for a while. So having a little of leftover chlorine to help nuke anything that might have survived the initial shocking treatment, not that big of a deal. I'll completely flush the system and freshen it up before I actually head off. I need to get filters as well. The hot water tank didn't leak at all. I dried everything up with paper towel to get it nice and dry, and then ran a whole bunch of water, never saw anything. Closed that back up. So the water treatment is done, at least done enough for now. Editing Maddie from the future here. I was going to make the water treatment and the batteries all part of one episode, but as I've been editing it, I realized I'm already closing in on 40 minutes. So I think I'm going to end this video here, and the next video will be setting up the lithium batteries and getting the old lead acid out. There's plenty there to make it a full episode. And I'm going to try to get it out less than a week from now. So I'm the Digital Mermaid. Thank you very much for watching. If you think others might enjoy this, can I ask you to do the usual YouTube-y doobly-doo stuff? Also, suntan. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.